and quarterly combined meeting. And we will start with roll call. So Ms. Fish.
Here.
Pastor Bennett. Mr. Taylor. Not signed in yet. Reverend Dr. Black.
Present.
Mr. Woodard.
Here.
And myself, Dr. Farmer, here. And we will just hope that the rest sign in here in a minute. All right, so with that, we will move on to, are there any public comments for the regular meeting?
I have no one signed up for public comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, we are on to the next agenda item for the approval of the May meeting minutes. Did everyone get a chance to look over that? And I believe, Mr. Hurt, you sent out additional documents today too. Were there any questions or additions or changes to any of those minutes from May?
I didn't receive the May minutes.
Mr. Hurt, are you checking on that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and send them again, but yeah, pretty sure I included everybody, Dr. Black. Not sure what happened.
Lost in the shuffle.
Not Dr. Black, no way. All right, I'll be right with you.
No problem.
While we're waiting on that, were there any other additional comments or additions for the May meeting minutes? Ms. Fish?
No.
Thank you. Would it be a good idea while he is checking on the May meeting minutes to come back to this agenda item?
I think you could go ahead and vote on them. I don't have to vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So is there a motion to approve the May meeting minutes? Ms. Fish?
I don't think we can, because without her, we don't have a quorum.
Oh.
3, 4,
Got
yeah,
you.
4 out of 6.
But we can probably
For
just
all of
move
us.
next item and then come back.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. So we will come back to this then once you have a chance to look it over. Okay, so agenda item 5 then, update on complaints from BPD. We have Sergeant right here.
So for June 2021, to date, we have 15 complaints that have been submitted for the year. 2 of those complaints are from incidents that occurred back in 2019, which is kind of a rarity to have something come in from that long ago. And we have 2 others that are from incidents that occurred in 2020. And just for clarification, within those 15, we also have 1 person who has filed 2 separate complaints. So 2 separate complaint forms on the same incident. And we're not really sure. We haven't been able to make contact with him. He's not returning any phone calls or anything like that. So we're not really sure where the disconnect is on that one. But just so that you understand that that's what's in those numbers. We currently have 8 pending complaints, and the allegations in those 15 that we have 2 that are for excessive force, 8 that are for dissatisfied with service, 2 for unlawful search and seizure, 1 for violation of policy, 2 for harassment, and 2 for unlawful arrest. And we do have 1 complainant who has asked for the PSCRB to review their complaint, and we'll work with Mr. Juergens to get that information to everybody prior to your next meeting. For April's calls for service, in 2021, we had a total of 6,105 calls for service. Comparison to April of 2020, which was 6,017 calls for service. So it's only a difference of 88, but it has went up slightly. Out of those calls for service, that 6,105, As far as the use of force report goes, 99.7 of those calls for service incidents in April were handled without an officer having to use force, show force, or display any type of force. We do have 0.3% that did have force that was used or displayed. 12 incidents where force was used with 16 different officers using force. And one of those incidents actually involved 3 officers. And there were 2 other incidents involving 2 officers. So that's why there's a little bit of a discrepancy with the 12 and the 16. We had 5 incidents where officers showed or displayed force with actual 5 actually showing and displaying when it came to tasers and duty weapon. The Taser Breakdown is we had a use of force report for a domestic battery incident where the officers were attempting to arrest a subject after he was being told that he was being arrested for domestic battery. The suspect immediately began fighting with officers, and 2 separate officers deployed their taser, and then the subject was taken into custody without any further incident. We had another show of force on another domestic disturbance where a female began approaching the officers that were on scene with a table leg in her hand. The officers pointed their taser and she put that item down, and there was no other force that was used. There was another show of force on a reckless driving complaint where the vehicle was reported to be speeding, traveling without any
We don't have the
lights,
same employer.
driving the wrong way on a one-way street, and ended up almost hitting a couple of pedestrians before it crashed. After locating that subject didn't comply when getting out of the car whenever he returned back to his vehicle. And so the officers pointed a taser at him until other responding officers could place him into custody. It was later found that that subject attempted to dispose of a firearm immediately following the crash. And then we had our last one is another show of force where a subject was fighting inside of a bar. Nobody in the bar wanted to be a victim. So the subject was removed, was being issued paperwork for being banned from the bar. And while the paperwork was being issued, made the choice to go back inside the bar where an officer pointed a taser at him again and ultimately had to use his OC spray to get him out of the bar itself. So that is the use of force updates. Chief Walmsley does have a couple more updates down here for note that he wanted me to pass along. That we have our new officers who started the academy are just over 3 weeks left, and then they will be completely done with the academy and coming back and starting their training here. We have one more officer who is still in the program, but should be finishing up their training fairly soon. We are trying to wrap up some additional testing for 2 other candidates with the intention of sending them to the academy starting July 6th of this year, obviously. And even with those numbers, that still leaves us down 8 officers. We do have our application period that is out right now. It just ended on Memorial Day. And as of Tuesday, the numbers that we had is we have 43 candidates who were invited to come and take the physical agility test after passing the online exam. And that is all I have. Anybody have any questions that maybe I can either answer or clarify?
Mr. Woodard?
Yes, Sergeant Wright, there were 2 excessive force. Is that correct? Two excessive force.
Two complaints of excessive force. Yes. In those 15 complaints, 2 of them have been allegations of excessive force. Yes.
Out of all the complaints, do you know of any reported injuries?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
From officers or, okay.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Other questions for Sergeant Wright? Pastor Bennett?
Yeah, not sure if I missed this portion of it, but out of the complaints that we have gotten, or you guys have gotten thus far, do any look like they will be coming to the board? Have you guys gotten wind of anything like that?
There's only one that we know of right now. And Chief Walmsley was just notified of that, I believe just a couple of days before he left on vacation. So we'll get all that paperwork together and work with Mr. Jurgens to be able to get that out to everybody prior to your next meeting.
Okay, and on that one, if you do know, on that particular one that might be coming to the board, you guys' return, I guess, to their report was unfounded or founded as far as the police department is concerned to have done?
Yes, it was actually, it's kind of a different one. It was a complaint about a vehicle that was towed. And it was quite a while back when this tow occurred. But yes, our findings are that the officers acted appropriately and everything was done like it should have been.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything additional for Sergeant Wright? Okay, well, thank you so much, Sergeant Wright.
Yep, no problem.
And I did notice that Pastor Bennett got to join us. Sorry, you didn't get the Zoom link. I saw your email. But we do have a quorum now. So with him here, did you get the May meeting minutes to look over, Pastor Bennett?
Yeah, I did. And I was able to hear the live when you asked it, so I'm fine. I'm good to go with the minutes.
Okay, so we will move back to agenda item 4 then, the approval of the May meeting minutes. Anyone else, I'll ask one more time just in case, have any additional changes or suggestions for those?
Nothing regarding the minutes, Dr. Farmer, but Mr. Taylor has contacted us and he's working with IT to get connected.
Yes, he is here now too. Good.
Jeff
Hello.
Jurgens.
Well, hopefully we won't have to deal with this technology stuff much longer, so we won't have to worry about it. Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the May meeting minutes? Ms. Fish, and is there a second? Pastor Bennett, thank you. Okay. So with that, then we will move down to agenda item 7, since we've covered 5 and 6 already. Open positions on the board and updates about that. On my end, I did reach out to the mayor about the open position on the board now that was vacated by Mr. Vasquez, and just let him know that there was a vacancy. If he needed anything from us, to let us know. He did get back to me and say that he will start reviewing the applications that they have on file and let me know if they need anything or if he has any questions. So that's my current update for that. Is there an update on the youth board positions? Mr. Hurt.
We have had 2 additional applications come in within the last week, and those have been forwarded on to the mayor.
Excellent. So for the other 2 applications that you had before from those who lived in Normal, are those going to be forwarded to the mayor as well for a total of 4, or were those excluded because they don't live in Bloomington?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to confuse you. The 2 that came in the last week, these were for the adult positions to replace Mr. Vasquez. We haven't had anything new on the youth commissioners yet.
Okay, got you. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Anything additional questions, comments about the open board positions or the youth board positions? Ms. Fish?
I know you guys worked with the stakeholders on talking some about this, the survey, but did we also go back out? Because I saw something on the city, but did we go back to them again about junior? I know that NAACP has got a youth council now, and I'm just wondering if they have someone that they could recommend, Ms. Foster could recommend for that position.
They have the information on it. They do have a youth council. A lot of the kids that they have are under the age of our commissioner threshold.
Oh,
So that
okay.
may be part of the problem.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And of course, I just say if anyone has any other suggestions or wants me to reach or anything about that for youth board members, just let me know. Is everyone ready to move on to the next agenda item then with nothing further on the board positions? Okay, so then moving on to agenda item 8, to talk about the survey that was done in conjunction with Not in Our Town. And we do have Mr. Matika here because he was instrumental in getting the survey created and sort of helping with that. So we wanted to let him comment on this first. Mr. Matika.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Farmer. And again, really was great to work with the board on this survey. I think it was a great confluence between Not in Our Town and your group. Maybe 2 comments. I think some folks organized a response to the surveys that was very slanted. Because if you look at the results, we have the majority of our 11,000 plus respondents, which is a great number of people to respond, but the majority identified themselves as African-American women between the ages of 25 and 30. And I do not think we had 11,000 African-American women between the ages of 25 and 30 participating in this survey. And at the same time, the majority of the results are basically saying Bloomington police are doing a wonderful job. And that's not to say that's not true, but it was pretty slanted in terms of the 90 plus kind of ratings that came through there. But I think the real benefit, and I really commend that the board, the police department, the city administration spend time with this. We had over 400 written comments. And some of those were just very insightful, very personal. People coming up with some very good ideas and suggestions for the department, and also recounting some of their personal stories of encounters with Bloomington police. Some are very positive, some are negative. But I think the real benefit of this effort may not be in the numerical data, but maybe in the written data we were able to collect. And that's where I think, the board can work with city administration. And I think it's a great opening for dialogue. And piece of it too, we asked people if they would be willing to participate in smaller focus groups. And we got a great response there also. So I think there's opportunity to use this as a launching pad for further exploration and to reflect on what people told us in written comments.
Thank you. And I would agree. I think something that we discussed at our meeting last time was the comments that were left and going through those, of course, and getting down to the themes of those comments as well. So thank you so much, Mr. Matika. Any comments right now about the survey before I get into some of the work that I've done on it so far? Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Dr. Farmer, and thank you, Mike. It was a great collaboration with Not in Our Town for, first of all, the putting together of the survey, which we have always said was not scientific, but was an effort, a joint effort by Not in Our Town. Dr. Black helped, Reverend Dr. Black helped with the survey as well, and it was a great collaboration between the two entities, the board and Not in Our Town, to put together the survey. I thoroughly agree with Mike's summary that there's no way that over 10,000 African-American females between the ages of 21 and 30 participated in the survey. The number is just statistically not possible. So I agree that there may have been some outside groups that skewed the survey, and of course, without an identifier to keep people honest in that respect, we have to assume that there was some manipulation of the survey. But I also agree that the comments are by over and above the most significant aspect of the survey. And Dr. Farmer went to great lengths to kind of categorize what those comments generally were, and I'm sure she'll be sharing that with the board here in just a few minutes. But as far as the effort is concerned, I think once again the PSCRB, with our mission of continuing dialogue and seeking community input for what we see is in Bloomington to help improve policing, and the attempt to provide some advice and input on the selection of the next police chief, I think is invaluable. And the board needs to be commended for that. And I'm looking forward to the next part of the dialogue, which, as Mike mentioned, the great number of individuals included their email address for us to contact them for further dialogue to assist us in our efforts to improve policing in Bloomington.
Thank you. Other comments right now regarding the survey before I go into the work that I've done on it? Okay. Is it okay if I share the screen that I can show the Excel file that I have working off of? Okay. That before, so. Okay. So I did copy and paste all of the comments into an Excel file. As you can see here, 292 people left an additional comment to that last question, which was general comments about the Bloomington Police Department. I just read through them initially and sort of tried to identify some initial themes. The ones highlighted in red actually did not leave an additional comment. They just said things like, you know, not applicable or no additional comment. So we can ultimately exclude those from the final number, of course, if we like. Here are the current themes that I have. And if you want to see examples of those, I'm happy to share. These can, of course, change as I narrow it down and work on this a bit. And as you can see, some of them I don't have a theme for yet because I'm trying to figure out where it fits exactly, if there needs to be collapsed categories, that sort of thing. So the themes currently are police community relations and outreach, positive perceptions of the police, negative perceptions of the police, alternatives to policing, funding the police, reform, the new chief hire, training, enforcement, inclusivity and diversity, discrimination. And then there were also some people who left general comments about the survey itself. We can talk about if we want to include or exclude those from the final number as well. They did not say anything additional about policing or the police department or the new chief hire, but I did include a category for that. Additionally, you'll see here that there's a column for theme 1 and theme 2. Some of the comments were just so long that they touched on multiple things. So I did, for those longer comments, if they touched on multiple themes, I included both of those themes. I didn't do more than 2, but you know, some of them just went through a lot of comments in terms of adding additional suggestions, comments, that sort of thing. And I included all of those. I think that's, you know, this is what I have so far for this question. Are there any questions about this or comments about what I have so far? Ms. Fish?
At some point, will we be able to see where you're at, or get some kind of a printed copy of categories, and that we can kind of look at the stuff too, at least before next meeting?
Yes, so my plan right now, and of course, I met with Mr. Taylor and Mr. Matika just initially, talking through this a couple of days ago. So my plan is to get this finished, like a preliminary completion of this question and the categorizing of these themes, and then send it out to this group for feedback, suggestions. If you want to save the feedback and suggestions for the next meeting, that's okay too. But I would ideally like to get the final report of the survey together by the beginning of July. And that would include, of course, as Mr. Taylor and Mr. Matika commented too, that would include notes throughout the final report about, this is a non-scientific survey, so it cannot be generalized to the entire population of Bloomington. It would include those notes that we discussed about demographics and how those were excluded from our analysis. And, we are not doing any sort of statistical analyses with those demographics because they were skewed. And so sort of having that together in a final report that I envision just putting it together as a PDF document that I can send out for suggestions and additions as well. Pastor Bennett.
I didn't actually see the number, I don't think, but how many did you condense it down to? Questions?
Oh, how many themes?
Yeah.
Currently, there are 12, if you
Okay.
include the comments on the survey as a theme. Like I said, we can include or exclude that as an actual theme since they didn't talk about policing or the new hire or anything in those comments.
Okay, and just to respond to that and whatever the board thinks, but I don't necessarily think those particular questions need to be included.
Okay. Are there any other thoughts about that? Primarily, the comments on the survey were just saying things like, I think the survey is biased, or, I think it's skewed a certain direction, that the questions weren't written fairly, that kind of thing. There were also comments, which we did discuss a couple meetings ago, about that question 6, where they could not choose more than one category on that sliding scale of like never to always. They had to just choose one each time. So there was a comment about that too. Any other questions, suggestions for me as I continue to work and finish this? Ms. Fish?
Hi. I know there's some question about the number of people that responded, and it might not be skewed correctly, but I also want to go on record of reminding you that this was not sent out to just Bloomington residents. It went to the whole county. And from some of the people I've talked to, it also went beyond that, because we didn't limit it to the residents of Bloomington. And according to what I've been told, the results are pretty much right on course of what generally happens on Facebook. The age group, the fact that female responded versus male, and it's like Facebook logistics kind of thing. Also, the race, that's generally who answers. But I just want to go on record of saying this went out to the whole county, including Bloomington, including Normal, all the other places around us, and then kind of traveled on to a few places from there. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind, that it was not limited to Bloomington residents.
Correct. It did go out to the whole county. I think what they are talking about with the skewness is even if you include the demographics and particularly focusing on ethnicity, because certainly we don't know for sure how many women answered the survey. There's no way to tell except for that demographic variable. We don't know the age groups exactly. Those could certainly be possible. But we do know the demographics of race within the county. And so even if you were to include the entire county within those racial demographics, the numbers would still not match. So the reason that I am suggesting we we can share the demographic variables, of course, for transparency. I think that's important. But the reason why I think that we should include a note about the demographic variables being skewed is because for any survey that you send out, whether it be on Facebook or anything else, or any kind of non-scientific survey even, you would expect to see more variation within those demographic variables. It doesn't have to be a ton, but what we see is a very strong skewness towards female, towards this certain age group, towards ethnicity of Black. And even in a random survey you send out, you would see more variation there, even on social media. And so it's not really the categories themselves that raise a red flag, it's the lack of variation.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we know that it went way beyond Bloomington. So thank you.
Mr. Woodard.
I just would like, sorry about that. I think I would just like to add that you're absolutely right in terms of what the results are. And the challenge, of course, is with the survey, it's confidential, it's anonymous. And we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting, whether or not we could even know if people who took the survey could actually take the survey more than once. And the comments, I think, are, as Mike, you mentioned, are very valuable. But at the same time, I think the survey tells us something else that we need to probably be just looking at or be cognizant of, is that it was a concerted effort somewhere to send a skewed message in the survey. Because I mean, one person didn't, I don't think one person, even if they could do it more than once, sat at home and did it 2,000, 3,000 times. Does that make sense? Okay.
Additional comments right now on the survey, questions for me about, do I need to go over anything else in the coding that I've done so far on those comments? Mr. Matika.
Yeah, just something too, since it's in the public record here, I presume media is going to ask questions about it. I've already had one outreach to me today. So just, I presume we should be ready, or the board should be ready to maybe have to get some kind of brief summary or something available, because it's now a known fact that it's out there and been noted on the agenda here.
Yeah, that's why I would really like to have that final report summary. As soon as I get these comments together and themed, have that final report summary done, ready for review by the next meeting, and we can push it out there. Mr. Taylor.
I'd completely agree with Mike that the exposure that we're likely to get with the media is quite important, particularly since there was great interest in the survey. I'm sure that there's media outlets that would like to report on the survey in and of itself and the results of it. May I suggest to the board that all comments be funneled through our chairman, because while we may have our own differing opinions about the survey and its validity and the what weight we may wish to put on certain aspects of the survey, I believe that we should speak with one voice, and that voice is through our chairman. So I would encourage people to funnel those questions to Dr. Farmer for a consistent message that comes from the board. And of course, Mike, you speak for Not in Our Town. You can comment any way you wish, but as far as our board, I think that we should allow Dr. Farmer to be our spokesperson today.
Ms. Fish?
I agree with Mr. Taylor. I have a situation where I'm administrator and founder of Westside Neighbors, and this was something that was discussed at our meeting, and I don't remember, I think it was March. And everybody's been waiting for it. Everybody's been, well, what happened? What are the results? And I think I've also contacted Mr. Hurd a couple times. So I kind of like, so we have a meeting scheduled on the 10th of June. And everyone that I've talked to that's reserved a seat, that's what they want to talk about. So you can come to our meeting or give me direction on what to say or not to say. That's your discretion.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm happy to, what is today's date? June 3rd. You know, I'm happy to go ahead and get this done and get that final draft of the survey, you know, output that we're going to put out there, get that final draft together in the next week or so, in which case I can send that draft to you and you'll have it for that meeting on June 10th. While it won't be finalized, my hope is that it will be as close to final as possible, pending the comments and suggestions from our next PSCRB meeting in July. Is there anything additional that you all need for me to do on that end with putting the final product together? Ms. Fish?
Well, I just want to say, I think for the meeting that I have, I think if you just give me something where I can say, well, we've taken the comments, it's down, we've put them in 12 categories. These are the categories. And this is what we will be discussing and bringing back at the next PSC, the board meeting. They're also looking at, they want to see the survey. They want to see how many people responded, who were they, that's what they're interested in. So I will go with whatever guidance you want to give me. I'm happy to do that, but it's of extreme interest on the West Side. So
Now you have, does everyone have the link to the survey results?
Yeah.
I do.
Okay. So, I mean, certainly you can feel free to share those preliminary results with them, because it has the numbers of how many people responded to each question, total number of respondents, et cetera. But I will also, you know, write up something with just generally, here's what I did for the comments, here's what we're including, et cetera, to send to you before then.
Okay, great. It's just, it's like everybody I talk to. So, but I want to follow whatever the board's guidelines are and be consistent with everybody else. So thank you.
Anything additional that you would like for me to do for the final version of this survey? Or any additional comments or questions about it? Mr. Taylor?
Just a point of order. The agenda mentioned general discussion about the survey, and I guess I'm asking Mr. Hurd and Mr. Juergens whether or not we have entities within City Hall who may have registered, who would like to comment on the survey results as part of our agenda item. And I guess I'm interested in knowing is, are we fielding questions or allowing comments?
I believe,
Yep.
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, having trouble in meeting. Yeah, so this is part of the open, I think, part of the public forum. But Mr. Hurt can say, I'm not sure we've got anybody that signed up or that is in attendance that has registered or shown a desire to speak. Is that correct, Mr. Hurt?
That's correct.
Okay.
Ms. Fish,
I
did you
just
have
wanted
anything?
I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
as part of our agenda and the discussion piece that we allowed any public comment or discussion around the survey results so that we could stay consistent with our agenda.
Of course. Ms. Fish?
Well, mine was basically along that same lines. That did we have any other the stakeholders that wanted to comment or be part of this meeting besides not in our town?
No one registered or indicated desire to speak. So that avenue is left open to them, but no one signed up for that.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to check.
So with that, is everyone okay then with me putting together a final draft of the survey, including all of the questions, all of the information about the coding that I did on this last question, everything else? Okay. Mr. Taylor, was that a yes or is that a hand up? I can't
It's just
tell.
a hand. I was going to volunteer if you needed any assistance whatsoever. I'd be happy to help.
Mr. Matika, did you have anything additional?
No, I appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure because just if any news media is watching this, there are probably going to be immediate questions and that, there's preparation to respond, even to say, here's a broad overview, but we'll have more specifics for you later.
Ms. Fish?
Well, to me, any media should be directed to you at this point, that we're working on it and we'll be reporting and da. But to me, the media should come through you.
Yeah, I think he was just simply commenting that I should mention that it's generally what we've done and that we will have the final version upcoming.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And before we move on, then just a final question, because there were comments left. I forget which question it was about additional comments about the new chief hire. Is there a need for me to code those as well by theme, or should we leave that as is and just include those comments? They all pretty much say similar things for the most part. But is there any guidance that you would have for that? Should I go through and code those as well or leave them as is? Mr.
I think you should code them because they're legitimate comments about the next police chief hire and any guidance that the citizens are provided are valid. So I think that they should be coded.
Ms. Fish?
I totally agree, since this is a police chief survey. So that's very important. So I agree with Mr. Taylor.
Anything additional questions, suggestions, input about the survey? Is everyone ready to move on to the next agenda item then? We've completed that one. All right. So 9 is just talking about future meeting dates, times, locations, topics. Our next meeting is July 1st at 3:30 p.m. Mr. Jurgens, is there any information about whether that will be in person at that point?
My assumption would be that meetings in July will be in person, yes,
Thank you.
if the numbers continue to trend the way that they are trending.
Are there any additional topics that anyone would like included on that agenda for July? Of course, we will have our final discussion about the survey, hopefully final discussion of the survey, that you will all have a draft of that we can go over for that meeting. Anything additional though that should be included? Mr. Taylor?
I think that we should have continuing agenda items with reference to future board members, both the adult member as well as the youth member, and any update that is possible. I also think that we should invite the mayor to our next PSCRB meeting, simply because being that we now have a new mayor, give him the opportunity to one, speak to us, and in turn us speak to him about what the board is doing and has done and what it hopes to do. Dr. Farmer, that as chairperson, I think you should reach out to the mayor and make that invitation, as well as the city manager, simply because we've had the city manager attend one of our meetings once before, but it's been several months ago. And being that we now have a new chairperson, I think that it would be appropriate.
I'll reach out to them right away via email and give them some time to get back to me. And if I don't hear back, I'll give them a call. But just to, formally invite them, the mayor and the city manager. Were there additional agenda items that any of you would like included for the July meeting? Mr. Woodard?
Yeah, I would just add, I think that's a good idea, Art, and I would just like to add, as always, I'd be interested in knowing what is the latest information regarding training of officers specifically.
Thank you. Additional agenda items I can include. Mr. Taylor?
In addition to what Jeff mentioned about training, we could also discuss additional recruitment of other officers, generally what their personnel status is, with reference to not only recruitment, but future retirements and any continuing education, as well as the typical training that the new officers go through. So just a general report from the general police department. And again, once, as we always have on the agenda, a complete review of any complaints received and reports of tasers and firearms and whatnot.
Thank you. Additional agenda items I can add. So before I take a motion to adjourn, does anyone have any other questions, comments to add about the meeting today? Mr. Bennett, or Pastor Bennett, sorry.
No, you can call me William. You got to apologize. Mr. Bennett, it's all good. Two quick things. Want to say it's good to see Reverend Dr. Black. Just wanted to say that. And then to Dr. Farmer, I wanted to say great job running your first PSCRB meeting.
Thanks. Sorry so many of you had a hard time signing it today. Ms. Fish?
Basically, he said exactly what I wanted to say. Good job.
Thank
And
you.
I'm glad to see that smile, Reverend Black.
Mr. Taylor?
Ditto for all of that. Dr. Black, you've been in our prayers, and we're so happy to see your face. You're an important part of this board, and we missed you. That was made evident from the last couple of meetings that you weren't able to attend. But we hope that you feel those prayers and you missed us as well. But we're glad to have you back.
Glad to be back, glad to be seen and not viewed.
Anything additional? Okay, so with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I didn't hear who that was, but I saw Mr. Taylor's hand first, and then seconded by Mr. Woodard. All right, so thank you. Hearing from me soon with the draft of the survey. And until next time, I will see you all in July.
See ya.
Bye.
Good job, Dr.
Good job.
Palmer.
Oh, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.